Resident Evil 6 has been on quite the journey since its debut earlier this year. While an early section with Leon blew us away with its eerie atmosphere at a Capcom presentation this past spring, the game struggled to impress at E3 2012, featuring some jarring segments with Chris and Jake. In the interim, Capcom has been hard at work, and the Resident Evil 6 we're seeing now seems much improved from the one we saw earlier this summer. Capcom's focus and challenge for this epic-sized game is finding a unique tone for each of the 4 campaigns. Yes, RE6 features 4 full campaigns, each starring a different set of characters. To overcome repetition, the developers based in Osaka, Japan not only had to effectively develop 4 full games in parallel, they had to find different ways to explore the notions of fear and horror. Playing through the same type of experience with different characters certainly wouldn't cut it. Fortunately, from what we've played so far, Capcom is succeeding in finding that difference, to the point where different campaigns will appeal to different audiences. Recently, RE6 director Eiichiro Sasaki shared his thought process on creating distinct storylines for each character.
If each character has their own story to tell, then that means we can also showcase different types of horror elements in each of those campaigns. Horror doesn't have to be this one monolithic thing.
Longtime fans of Resident Evil will want to pay attention to Leon's campaign, as it retains a darker tone and focuses on a slower crawl through a zombie-infested city. In some ways, it feels like a return to Raccoon City, but with the benefit of modern technology and production values. Action here comes in bursts, with Leon and Helena Harper moving quietly through desolate courtyards full of the undead that are ready to attack at a moment's notice. That ebb and flow of violence leads to a great deal of tension, particularly when stupidity, like ignorantly walking through a metal detector while fully armed, leads to some rather oppressive conditions.
You just think, okay, I'm gonna start, I got all these army guys with me, I'm just gonna run and gun, shoot my way through the enemies.
Lately, Capcom has given us a much better impression of Chris Redfield's campaign, which on the surface appears to be very much like Resident Evil 5. That is to say, heavy on the action and light on the horror. But it turns out that isn't quite true, as Redfield's team is slowly pulled apart as the forces of evil descend upon them. What we played of Chris's campaign, however, was still relatively early, as his team is intact and kicking ass. This portion of the game definitely calls back to RE5, perhaps containing more action than any Resident Evil game before it. Knowing that Chris and his BSAA partner Pierce will increasingly find themselves isolated and outnumbered gives us hope that this portion of Resident Evil 6 won't be completely without fear. Jake's portion of Resident Evil 6 has been well documented to this point. He and Sherry Birkin are being pursued relentlessly by the Ustanak, a nemesis-like beastie that we all saw in the E3 and Dragon's Dogma demos. Our latest turn with Wesker's son didn't feature a chase, however, as Jake and Sherry are simply attempting to fight past an onslaught of Yavos, which morph their limbs as they are wounded. In some case, they'll completely transform into lizard-like beasts, becoming more powerful than ever. It's hard to know what to make of Jake's campaign so far, as this latest demo is wildly different from the Ustanak encounter we'd played previously. And neither sampling left an overly fond impression. The Yavos are simply too fast and powerful compared to Jake's arsenal, leading to a lot of mindless, seemingly unintentional running. Frankly, it gets old and fast. This is but a small slice of a lengthy storyline, however, so here's hoping these limited samplings are simply lacking context.
If the other 3 campaigns raised a lot of questions about the RE6 story, then Ada's campaign is the answer.
Capcom has finally confirmed Ada Wong is not only playable in Resident Evil 6, but will be featured in her own campaign, which will be unlocked after players complete the other 3 storylines. Featuring a healthy mix of puzzles, action, and creepy dungeon crawling, Ada's demo gave us a quintessential taste of classic Resident Evil gameplay, something we've been craving for many years. Ada's segment of the game also allowed to get a better sense of Capcom's intentions for its slightly retooled zombies. This time around, Ada is forced to confront armor-wearing undead knights, requiring more strategy to defeat, making what used to be a mindless encounter anything but that. If Ada's campaign is anything like our brief demo, which culminated with a high-powered battle against a slimy naked lady named Deborah, Resident Evil 6 will feature a very strong final chapter. All told, Capcom's latest playable sampling of Resident Evil has left a far more positive impression than it did a couple months back. It's clear Capcom is listening. It'll be interesting to see how the game fares when we're able to sink hours, not minutes, into each campaign. For more on Resident Evil 6, stay tuned to IGN.com.